Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be a mid-tiny build for patch 7.36c, and I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about the hero a little bit here before we jump in and I show you the item build and the skill build, mainly because we're going to talk first thing about these two facets, and also that this hero is basically one of the best mid heroes right now. Pretty much it's like Tiny, Ember. There's a few other mid heroes that are pretty good right now, but Tiny is like the mid hero. And actually, this hero was a carry for a little while in the 7.36 patch, but then they nerfed a few things about the carry Tiny. It's still like possible to play carry Tiny. It's something that's still picked a little bit, but the mid Tiny is just way better. And the real reason for all of this is that, like, basically for the carry Tiny, they nerfed some of the building damage and stuff with the tree grab and everything. But really, this facet is the main reason this hero is overpowered, and I feel like this hero's been overpowered forever. But the facet Crash Landing is just insane. This Insurmountable is not really something you would ever pick just because this is so good. Because this basically makes his toss do insane, ridiculous damage and slow, which is also ridiculous as well. I heard somebody say, like, compare it to if Laguna Blade had, like, what is this, an 11-second cooldown and also slowed them and did AoE damage. Like, that's kind of the insanity of toss right now, which is why this hero is so good. So that's why you're always going to be picking this facet, and then we're going to jump in to the demo mode and I'll show you the build of the hero. So now we can jump into the build and we can take a look at the items. So the starting items are going to be pretty straightforward. Quelling Blade, Tango, Fairy Fire, 1 Observer Ward, 2 Iron Branches. This is pretty much going to be almost every single mid starting item for a melee hero, because you're going to include this Quelling Blade. If you're not a melee hero, sometimes you obviously won't get this. You'll get some extra branches, or just start with this if you really want to rush the bottle. And then obviously this ward is for scouting and all those kinds of things, you know, placing it at the correct place in the mid. Maybe sometimes you won't get it, maybe the support will get it. But regardless, this is pretty much every single game. And then you're going to be rushing the bottle because this hero does need to get mana, and then obviously with the health and the trading, you're going to want that too. So it's just really good for this hero. The only time you don't buy bottle on mid heroes these days is because, you know, you don't need the mana for whatever reason. But this hero spams out mana. I mean, Tree Grab isn't high mana, but these other spells for clearing waves or for trying to damage the enemy, or later obviously when you do gank and stuff like that, or you're contesting runes, these are really important, and they cost a ton of mana, so that's obviously why you're getting bottle. Then you're going to finish Magic Wand, just really good in general for a mid hero who's going to be running around, and the enemy's going to be casting spells probably to clear the wave and all that kind of stuff to harass you. So that's just pretty straightforward. The only other thing is Power Treads. Now this is going to be the thing you're probably getting every single game. I honestly could put the other boots in here. I probably could put phase boots in, like, situational, because sometimes people do buy phase boots and they can be good in certain matchups, so you can get on top of people and toss them and all that kind of stuff. But I would say in general, for most games in pubs, I would just go straight up for Power Treads, because it's going to just give you more mana sustain when you are switching to int treads for your spell casting. It's just going to make you a little tankier with the strength, but really it's also for, like, kind of using your right click damage when you want to hit towers and things like that, because yes, you're not being a carry, so that's not as important as maybe the carry version of Tiny, but you do kind of scale later into the game with right click, with attack speed, and if you are going to buy this Echo Saber later, you know, that just helps as well, just getting all those attacks in. And treads is just overall better as an item. Like, if you can buy one or the other, you're almost always going to want treads. It's just a little bit greedier in terms of you're not going to be, like, running people down. So there are going to be situations where this might be good, but I would just say for the most part, for people watching this in pubs, just get the Power Treads. So that's the early game items. I would put the Blink Dagger in early game items. This is going to be the first item you get, and it is kind of like an early game thing, but it's really just like the core items of the hero. And you're always going to be getting this Blink Dagger first. It's going to be your main thing that you're going to be getting, because every single game from the mid lane, because you're not playing the carry Tiny, you're playing the gank and run around the map and kill people Tiny. So you're obviously going to want to use your spells, jump in, and you just burst people down. Like, once you get this blink, if you get a very good timing early on, obviously when you're ganking people in the side lanes before 10 minutes or whatever, you can kind of use the trees to your advantage, use your allies' spells to your advantage. But this is really going to be the huge power spike for the hero, because once you get this, and you want to get this as soon as possible, you just become a menace on the map. Like, you can jump in, toss avalanche people, and there's really, or avalanche toss, you know, whichever one, you know, hit them with the tree, throw the tree at them. You just will destroy, you'll one-shot every support in game almost, and then you'll one-shot, like, mids, you'll one-shot carries. Like, obviously offlaners are usually pretty tanky, so you won't one-shot them, but you'll do like 80% of their health or something insane like that. It's just ridiculous how much damage this hero does right now. with all these spells being maxed out in the beginning, and then getting this crash landing facet as well. It's just so insane. That's why the hero is broken right now, because it just does way too much damage on super low cooldown. And so when you're ganking later in the game, you can even use this like twice in a gank or twice in a fight, which is crazy. So you're always going to be getting Blink Dagger. And then because the broken part of the hero is Toss, which is a targeted ability, Phylactery is just going to be even better, because you're going to blink in and then you're going to use your Toss on the guy and the Avalanche, and that's just going to do even more burst damage with this item. And then obviously later in the game, because you're going to kind of be scaling with your right clicks, you can even buy Ags and stuff later. That's going to also help, because now you have this Phylactery that has that crit component when you do upgrade it. So that's just another good part of the hero, because it's kind of the combination of spells in the beginning of the game, and later in the game you can kind of do more right click damage. So that's a great thing to get. And then the other thing is Echo Saber. You're pretty much going to be getting this every game, I would say. If you look at like Dota 2 Pro Tracker or other things like that, they don't buy it every game. It's like 50% of the time, but they usually opt for something else, either just skipping it or going maybe for a Shadow Blade, or going right into BKB because they feel they really need the BKB early. But for the most part, I would say in your games, you're going to want to get this Echo Saber, because this hero does a lot of right click damage, and by the time you get all of these items, you're probably going to have more points in tree grab, and then you can just, you know, hit people twice, throw the tree at them. That's 3 attacks like instantaneously, plus this whole combo that just amps up your damage even more. And then it also allows you to push towers pretty well with the tree grab as well. So I think you should probably just get this item almost every single game. That's my opinion. Then late game, I only put a few items in here. I put BKB. You're probably going to want to get this almost every game, because once it starts getting later in the game, people have a lot of stuns, a lot of control, all this different stuff. You want to be able to jump in, use your combo, and not just instantly die. And BKB helps you do that, because then you kind of want to press BKB, maybe right-click people a little bit, but then maybe reset, you know, reset your blink, reset your spell cooldowns, and then jump back in. That's a huge part of the hero. Then you can upgrade to the Conda. You can get your Ag Shard, which is going to be good, because by this time, you know, you're going to be trying to push towers and that kind of stuff, which really helps to have that tree grab all the time. It also helps you clearing waves and stuff, even though you obviously have Toss and stuff that can clear waves really well right now. Not having to actually use mana to clear waves is pretty good, so getting that Shard is great. Then upgrading your Harpoon maybe last, and honestly, I would just not necessarily upgrade Harpoon every single time. I would maybe get some of these other later game items before I would even upgrade Harpoon, because some of these other things are going to be really good. And those other situational items that are going to be really good are going to be Shadow Blade. This is probably the most bought item that isn't in the main build, I would say. And some people, like I said, will even skip Echo Saber for Shadow Blade if they feel like they just need that initiation power. They need to just not be seen before they jump in, that kind of stuff. It also does insane burst damage too, obviously, when you click people and then you use all these spells, those kinds of things. So that can be a really good part of the hero buying Silver Edge. And then Octarine Core is kind of a later one too. That's like a pretty late game item after you bought a bunch of these other things, because this just makes you able to, you know, use your spells even more than you otherwise would. And I would say this item is more if you are just still going all in on that spell damage. Like, you're really just the initiation, you're bursting people down, you're all about the spell damage, you have a right click carry on your team, maybe the offlane is a little bit of a right click hero, and so you don't really feel like you need to transition into any kind of right click or attack speed. You can just go straight up for Octarine Core, which is going to be great. Then obviously the last thing for like if we bought this, we kind of have a full inventory here, so then you're going to want to upgrade Overwhelming Blink or Swift Blink. And this kind of goes along with, hey, am I going for the spell build? Then I'm going to want to get Overwhelming Blink. Have I transitioned into more of a right-click build? And that's Swift Blink, obviously, with the attack speed and agility and all that kind of stuff. And then along with the right-click version is maybe you don't get this. Maybe you didn't even get... well, you probably do get BKB, but maybe you don't even upgrade your Harpoon yet, and you want to get something like the Assault Cuirass to do even more right-click damage, because you're kind of transitioning into that sort of hero. Or you maybe even want to get your Ags, which is going to allow you to obviously do that tree throw thing from fog, or if you're defending high ground or something, it's really important to get that. That can be a method as well. Maybe Moon Shard even super late into the game if you're going right-click build. Obviously, like I said, Swift Blink to upgrade your blink if you're doing that. You could even potentially buy Daedalus. If you're going like all in on the right-click, it's a thing that you can do. It's probably not advised in most games, but you could sell Conda and go for Daedalus like super ultra late. And that's kind of the only, like, the last one. I would not buy MKB on the hero. I wouldn't really buy buy rapier or anything like that. Like most of those items I wouldn't really buy. You could obviously upgrade to Boots of Travel later. You could maybe get a Lincoln Sphere if it's super important against very specific heroes. Maybe a Midas if it's kind of a griefed game, but again, that's kind of just very situational. Refresher can be very good as like the ultra late game 7th item kind of thing. After you have a Synth Dags, after you have a Moonshard Eaten or all that kind of stuff, you can just get this Refresher, and then you have, you know, double all your spells, double the ags, all that kind of stuff, which can be really good. And then in very specific situations, in very specific games, because Wind Waker is still kind of broken, this can be a very good item to buy, just because, let's say, you just feel like BKB is even not enough. Like BKB, the Invis, this kind of stuff is not enough for you to escape, and you just need this Wind Waker to survive so you can get more spells off in the fight and do more damage and all that kind of stuff. Wind Waker is definitely an option. If you go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker or some of these other places, you can see it will be bought maybe 5% of games, 10% of games, so it's not like completely insignificant, but it is very situational, so that's why I put it at the bottom there. So that is the item build for the hero, and then we can go to skill build. Usually, actually, the first skill that people usually skill mid is the tree grab, and this is just because this helps you level 1 to last hit. So these other spells are obviously good if you want to get like first blood at the runes. Maybe you could, you know, skill one of these. That's definitely possible. It's definitely an option, but this just helps you in the lane way more because it's going to help you secure more last hits. You can obviously harass by throwing the tree and stuff like that. But this is really good also because you will get level 2 on the first wave. It's going to be better for you to secure all of that than get one of these spells, which is also hard to control. Like level 1 toss is not that good. You're not going to be really last hitting with that. Level 1 avalanche, again, not a lot of damage. You're not going to be last hitting with that. So it's easier to secure your level 2, which you get one of your other good spells with this tree throw. So once we have tree throw, then we will let's level up this hero all the way. So once we have tree throw, then we're going to level toss, and toss is the main thing we're going to be leveling because, again, this is the broken spell right now. So you're going to get 2 points in that, then you're going to go back for avalanche, and then you're going to level up toss and then grow. So basically we want to level up and max toss first, which we have 1 point in both of our other skills and our alt. Once we get to level 6, and then level 7, maxing out toss, and then again maxing out avalanche, because this is the ability in combination with toss that is going to do the most damage, obviously. Then we can we can kind of max this out 4, 8, 9, 10 before we actually get our talent at level 10. We might want to get that at 11, get our grow then, and then max out the tree grab and get our alt whenever we can at every level that you're allowed to, basically whenever it becomes available. And that is how you want to skill this. The only like weird part that I said is that we might want to, you know, max out avalanche before we get the level 10 talent. That's the only weird thing. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Max out toss, max out avalanche, get your ult whenever you can, then max out tree grab last. Then when we look at talents, basically the level 1 or 10 talent, the first talent, is the only one that's a little bit kind of like, which one do we really want? 8 strength is going to be the default, but this cast range like is decent. It's also good. Like if you feel like you don't really need to be tanky because you're already tanky, your passive here is already pretty good at making you tanky, you're already a tanky hero innately, like you just don't feel like the enemy has a lot of damage and that's not the thing you're scared of, maybe you don't go for the 8 strength, maybe you go for this cast range because you think it's just more important in this game. But for the most part, it's just safer to go with the strength if you want to do that. Then the avalanche damage is also really important. This grow attack speed reduction, not really a big deal. This is more for the right click version, so you could do that, but obviously this early in the game, level 15, we're still going for the spell damage. We're not the right click carry version of Tiny yet, and that's more even late game when we get to maybe level like whatever it is, 27, 28, when we get this ability later, or when we get this talent later. So yeah, I would pretty much always go for this 80 avalanche damage because that just amps up your scaling in that kind of like 20-minute range or whatever it is when you have level 15. Then here, this is one of those where the toss requires no target, you would think, because toss is the broken spell, you would get this, but actually that's not as important. Like there are very specific times where you can use this like in a skillful way, but for the most part, I think there's like weird ones where, you know, if you're defending the base and you can like toss someone in fountain or weird stuff like that. Yeah, toss people back, like blink toss for defensive capabilities. That would definitely be something you can do. But at this point in the game, you're getting a little bit more to the right click version. You're maybe pushing high ground, this kind of stuff. And this is just going to be better overall, like amping everything up for right clicking, especially when you have this harpoon or, you know, echo saber. That's going to be good. And then the 2 toss charges, that is really going to be good because that's going to amp up your damage even more. That's kind of where the hero gets insane. And the cooldown for avalanche is not that important. And then obviously you get all of those at level 30. You get all the ones that you can get, you know, for each time you get the opposite one. So that is the talents. That is the build for Tiny currently from the mid lane. That's all of the items, that's all of his abilities, and that's the talents. And obviously, like we said earlier, you're going to be getting crash landing because it's just way better. There's never a scenario where you're going to get the other facet. And that is Tiny, and that is the build for patch 7.36c. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.